So the other day I made a video about the PlayStation 5 DRM situation and not knowing what's going on here. We're all trying to find answers. Now, I said that if this is true, this is nothing to be surprised about because of the fact that they hid this from us ever since 2013. Xbox wanted to do this, PlayStation wanted to do this, and basically at the end of the day, PlayStation is trying to do it now based on reports. Now, I don't know how believable this is, but based on what I'm seeing now, it may get some people to really start to look at this like in a serious notion. So let's talk about this. Shout out to Pirate Nation. He is on X or she is on X. They always put out stuff pertaining to gaming or whatever the case may be. I came across this when I came up here, looked on the computer, and basically there's some confirmations from PlayStation support saying that this is confirmed. So I'm just gonna go and look at this tweet or this X post and give my thoughts and opinions. PlayStation support has confirmed that new digital rights management policy for the console is intentional, not a glitch. Starting with any digital game purchased after March 2026 system update, or after the March 2026 system update, your PS5 will require an internet connection at least once every 30 days to validate the license. If the console stays offline longer than that, the game simply will not launch until you reconnect. This change does not affect any titles in your library. A setting a console as your primary system will also not bypass the monthly check-in. So basically what we're looking at is a monthly check-in to your games that you purchased, quote unquote purchased. I do feel like the license should be yours. Once you purchase it, it should stay embedded in your console, and that should be it. There should be no checking in. Now, this is another thing. I looked at this online assistant thing. I don't know if this is let's say an AI answering this or whatever. I'm gonna try to slide this over so you guys can see this in so we can look at it completely. There it is right there. And this is basically what it says. It says, thank you for your interest. 30-day timer is being applied to all new purchases. Affected content games purchased digitally after the March 2026 update. Offline functionality. If the console does not reconnect to the internet every 30 days, yada yada yada. It may refuse to launch until connection is restored. Primary console, it does not bypass this requirement. A 30-day valid period is not a sign of account restriction or anything like that. Now, I don't know how valid this is. I mean, the people could put this up and be what it is, but it is gaining more traction. People are starting to look at this and be like, this is a thing. Personally, if you want my opinion, I feel like this may be a thing. This could be believable because this is something they've been wanting to do for over a decade. And if you have you know, if you have what digital products, you probably shouldn't worry about this too much if you're, on the internet all the time. So it's not that big of a deal. But this is how they take an inch and then they go along with the mile. So this is something you may want to really look at if you think that is not that big of a deal. Don't really just overlook this. As for me, I didn't buy any games since this March 2020 this 2026 update. I think the only game I did buy, if I want to be accurate and honest, I think I bought Mouse PI, obviously since then. I think that's the only game that I bought, but 30-day license for that. After I beat that game, I probably would never play it again. So I'm not that big, worried about it. And the game is going to be physical later on down the road. So I'll just buy it physical if that's the case. But like I said, if you're a person that like to get digital games, if you're a person that has a digital only console, and this is something you may want to side eye to a little bit because regardless of the 30-day situation, these are your games. Regardless of whatever EULA or licensing agreement or whatever case that stuff is a scam, and by law it should not be honored, regardless of us agreeing to it. It should be illegal for them to do it the way that they're doing it. And now we're looking at a situation where your games may not even be yours because of stuff like this. You get offline for 30 days, which, like I said, I don't think that's something that's really viable. And I don't think a lot of people are doing that. But just the fact that it's there, that's the real issue. You know what I mean? This is the type of stuff that really starts at really small levels and then it just takes off and then before you know it, you're looking back like, "Oh, man, what the hell just happened?" You know what I mean? So, we gotta be mindful of stuff like this. For me, I don't really buy games digital like that anymore. That even goes for, on Xbox or Steam or anything else. I don't really try to buy games like that, and if I do buy them, these are games that I may not really wanna be invested in. These are games that are probably dirt cheap on a Steam sale. Like, I think recently, prior to the 2026 update, I did buy, King of Fighters 2002, King of Fighters 98, and I think I bought another SNK basically had, like, some type of sale that was going on. Their games were like 249, and I bought those 3 games prior to this update, and, so those are clear as far as I know. But I think Mouse PI is, like, the only game I know for certain I bought, probably, like, what, a couple weeks ago. So I know that's gonna be an issue, but I'm not worried about that for the most part. I mean, like I said, I'm barely offline anyway. It's always connected to the internet for some form or fashion, even on when it's on safe mode, right? It's still connected to the internet. But you just still got to understand, like, this is something that you may not want to think about, but they can't get away with stuff like this. I mean, they shouldn't get away with stuff like this because before you know it, it's a weekly check in. And then before you know it, it's a daily check in. Before you know it, there's no check in. You don't own none of this stuff. You know what I'm saying? So it's stuff to think about, but I look at it from a standpoint where um, you just have to be mindful of stuff like this. Be careful with your purchases. If it's up to me, I and with this type of stuff going on, I probably would never ever pick up another digital game on my PlayStation 5 because what happens when the servers officially go down and you have something like, let's say, the PlayStation 2 or PlayStation, like, what if you have a console that don't need the internet anymore and they don't support the internet anymore? What happens to your games, you know? So it's just something to think about on that aspect. But I think all in all, for the most part, the majority of us will be okay. But you just gotta look into this and be mindful. Be tread lightly when you're purchasing stuff. You just never know. You never know what may happen. You want full ownership of your stuff, just be mindful. But I'm gonna just leave it right there. I think that it's not necessarily a nothing burger, but at the same time, this is a pretty big issue, you know? Like I said, a lot of us do be online, but you can't take that for granted. Stuff like this could happen and all of a sudden you don't have your games. And a lot of this stuff, like right now for me, and I'll say this before I get out of here, my PlayStation 3 Wi-Fi does not work anymore. If I want to get online with my PlayStation 3, I have to hardwire my PS3. Well, what if I don't, want to, I don't have the wherewithal to plug it up to the internet like that because I got a lot of consoles in here. But stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? You just never know. But I don't know. You guys, let me know what you think. Um, do I think this is real? Maybe. I don't know. But tread lightly. Yeah, I'm gonna get up out of here. Y'all take it easy. I'll be blessed. Peace.